Mr. President, I rise today to speak about the highway bill that I understand there'll be a cloture vote tomorrow, and then potentially, if that is achieved, final passage the day after. I just want to say that, again, I appreciate the efforts of so many in various areas. And I want to say that my comments today are not intended to be directed at any individual or either side of the aisle. I've been here since I was elected in 2006. I came in 2007, so I've been here roughly 8.5 years. And one of the reasons I ran for office was to deal with our nation's fiscal issues. I was just so concerned at the direction in which our country was going. And as you know, every military leader that we have, just about, will tell you our greatest threat to our nation's national security is us, those of us here in Congress, and the way that we deal with our fiscal issues. The simplest fiscal issue that I know of to solve is the highway bill, because it's simple math. It's not like Medicare, where all these actuarial issues have to be dealt with and you have to make assumptions about the impact on care and all of those kinds of things. The highway bill is something just simple math. I mean, it's just so easy. There's money that comes in and there's money that goes out. And I think everybody in this body knows that the highway bill was set up based on a user fee program, where you'd have people who were using the highways would pay for that through user fees, and then the money would be there. It's called a trust fund, a real trust fund, where in fact the money would go out. And we have a system in our country where we paid for our highways and other infrastructure in that regard. As a matter of fact, the state of Tennessee has zero road debt, because that's exactly the way they handle their state portion. I know a lot has been said about this presidential race and what's driving some of the interesting anomalies that are occurring right now. And people are saying, well, certain candidates are receiving a lot of attention because of the anger that people have in America at Washington. And Mr. President, I would just tell you this. This bill, this is an outline of it, should be Exhibit A as to why people in America are angry at Washington. Both sides of the aisle, both ends of the Capitol. This is Exhibit A. Again, I understand that this was a combined effort with lots of people, but if I could just point out a few things. Number one, we've had 5 general fund transfers, in other words, taking money out of our general fund and sending them over to the Highway Trust Fund, been totaling $60 billion since 2008. Now, we have these wonderful young interns who come up here to learn about Washington. They come up here to experience Washington. They've read in their history books in other places, just in civics, about this being the greatest deliberative body in the world, quote, quote, quote. And I would think that in most cases, they probably look up to the people here on the floor, and some of them may aspire someday to actually serve in the Senate. But what they're going to be witnessing, should this bill become law, is 100 folks in this room, not all of them, but a number of people in this room voting to basically steal money from you, so that all of us can look good to our constituents and pass a highway bill. So we're going to steal money from you so that we don't have to deal with this issue. It's called generational theft. So to your pages, to the people that you've been working with for so long, just know that I don't know of any other way of describing it. Let me explain. This is a 3-year bill that we're going to pay for over 10 years. 100% of the spending, in other words, takes place between the years 2016 and 2018, 100% of the spending. But 69% of the offsets, the money coming in, actually comes in. You heard me say 2016 to 2018. 69% of that money comes in between 2022 and 2025. So that would be like your mother or father going to the grocery store and buying groceries and saying, well, I'm not going to pay for this today. I'm going to pay for this in 7 or 8 or 9 years down the road. And every time they went to the grocery store, they did that. You can imagine how your household finances would operate if that's what you did. But that's what, if this bill becomes law, that's what the people in this body are doing to you. Generational theft. Because we use these tricky accounting rules around here where if we pay for something over 10 years, even though we spend the money in 1 year, we count that, believe it or not, as paid for. But it's even worse on something like a highway trust bill. See, this is something where money is supposed to come in at the same rate money is going out. You can expect some aberrations on when money comes in and when money goes out on other kinds of programs. You can expect that, but not on the highway trust fund. This is the kind of math, by the way, that each of you probably knew about in the 3rd or 4th grade, where you could figure out how much money is coming in and how much money is going out. But on both sides of the Capitol and on both sides of the aisle, since 2008, instead of dealing with this issue, which, by the way, means you have to make some tough choices. You can either spend less money in the trust fund. That would be a way to make it add up. You could devolve some of the responsibilities back to states, which, by the way, so many roads now are becoming roads that the federal system pays for. There might be a good argument for, there is a good argument for that. Or you could just increase revenues and make sure that those who are driving on the roads in our country today paid more to do it. But that's not what's going to happen. See, we're going to pull a trick on the American people. I get back to that anger issue and the reason that so many people are upset in Washington. Again, this is Exhibit A. As a matter of fact, only 9% of the money coming in over this 10-year period, it comes in during the period of time that we're spending on the highway bill. Can you believe that? And yet we call that as being paid for. Let me tell you what else we're doing. This is fascinating to me. We are extending, Congress in its brilliance has created a system where on Fannie and Freddie, remember the two behemoths that have about $5 trillion in housing mortgages in our country, and they're the big giants that failed back in 2008. What we have done is, in this bill, I'm not going to do it, but if people vote for this bill, what they've agreed to do is extend the guarantee fee on mortgages out, by the way, the last couple of years of this bill. So again, money comes in way beyond the time we spend it. So let's say that, that you guys go to college. I know many of you will. You get out, you decide to buy a home. Let me tell you how we in our wisdom have decided to pay for our highways. We're going to make you pay more for your mortgage. You're not going to know that, by the way, but we're going to hide it in your mortgage. See, we want to make sure that the American people don't really know how we're paying for these things. We try to hide these things from folks so that when we run for re-election, we don't create the ire amongst the public. This one's hard for me to believe. Now, I can understand some people in this body who support Fannie and Freddie continuing on forever supporting this, because what we're really doing is now the federal government, in order to pay for our roads, is relying on Fannie and Freddie. So how could you do away with them? Think about it. All of us, we've had so many people in this body talk big about winding down Fannie and Freddie and how they're a threat to our nation. I've actually written a bill to try to deal with that with people on both sides of the aisle. Had a lot of support. We all talk big, but let me tell you what we're going to do. To pay for our highways, we're going to continue the terrible policy of making sure that every time somebody gets a mortgage, they pay a little bit more for that mortgage the entire time, by the way, that mortgage is in place. That generates $2 billion. But of course, the American people won't know or see that, and so that, of course, makes us very popular. Let me tell you another one. This one's fascinating to me. The Federal Reserve System has been paying member banks that invest in their regional feds a dividend. Since 1930, that dividend rate has been 6%. I don't know if that's the right number or not. By the way, some people are confusing this with a monetary policy issue, which is the amount that's being paid on the reserves. That's not what this is. This is something that's been in place since the 1930s. We've never had a hearing on it, by the way, and I have no idea what we should be paying, okay? I have no idea. But just out of the blue, by the way, to generate $17 billion without a hearing, never been a hearing. Matter of fact, I'd say that most people in this body have never heard of this issue. Never had a hearing, but to pay for our roads, again, to make sure that we stay in great stead with our constituents back home. We don't have to make any tough choices. We're going to change that from 6 to 1.5%. That generates $17 billion. But again, that keeps us from having to deal with this issue head on. Do you understand? And by the way, a lot of that money comes in way beyond the period of time we're spending the money on the roadways. This is the one that gets me. I love this one. I love this one. So we're going to sell 101 million barrels of oil from something called the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. From 2018 to 2025, we've got a big strategic petroleum reserve that is in our national security interest. As a matter of fact, I would say that if President Obama were to propose this particular pay-for, most everyone on our side of the aisle would just raise unbelievable, I need to choose my words, but would be very upset. Let me put it that, very upset. It would be dead on arrival. Because what it does is it weakens our national security. We have the Strategic Petroleum Reserve that's there in a time of a crisis. We want to make sure that people in America have access to this petroleum reserve. But let me tell you, this is just so brilliant. We're generating $9 billion, by the way, in the year 2018 through 2025, again, beyond the time of even paying for this highway. So again, you know, it's generational theft. It's selling assets down the road to pay for things today. Generates $9 billion. Half of the sales incur in 2024 and 25. So again, it's kicking the can way down the road. But let me tell you what we've done. Now again, for America, please, please be upset about this, okay? Please, please be angry about this. Let me tell you what we're doing. We have decided that even though oil today, I looked, you know, we all make investments and pay attention to the markets a little bit. We hope we save some money and can do that. Oil selling today at under $50 a barrel. $50 a barrel. But let me tell you what we've decided. We're going to sell this oil out. You know, we're just going to make it up. $89 a barrel. Think about that. So Congress, in its wisdom, has decided we're going to sell 101 million barrels of oil, and we're so bright. We can anticipate the future so well. We know, by golly, that when we sell this oil between 20 and 25, it's going to be at $89 a barrel, even though it's under 50 today. But we know that because we represent America. We've been elected to the United States Senate. So let me just tell you this. That's how we're generating it. By the way, if oil happens to be selling during that period of time at $74, we break even. If it sells for anything under that, it's less. But by the way, $9 billion made up money just because we've decided that's what the price of oil is going to be at that time. I just got to say that this is one of the most irresponsible pieces of legislation that I've seen come this far in the United States Senate. Let me say this one more time. This has got to be one of the most irresponsible pieces of legislation that I've seen make it this far in the United States Senate. And I'm very disappointed at where we are. I'm not directing at anybody. People on both sides of the aisle are involved in getting it where it is today. People on both sides of the building have used these types of gimmicks and tricks to basically involve ourselves in abject generational theft, keeping us from making tough decisions today. They're not even tough, to be honest, just using our God-given common sense, the same thing that most Americans get up every day and have to deal with. I've been so uplifted in my home state, my hometown of Chattanooga, to watch how ordinary citizens with huge patriotism and large amounts of common sense have dealt with a tremendous tragedy in our hometown, have just been overwhelmed by it. I wish that all of America could see the response of people who are just, again, people who wake up every day carrying out their ordinary duties, husbands and wives and sons and daughters, and they care about our nation. They care about its future. They care about our military. They care about people who protect us. I wish that somehow people could see that, and yet, and I know people see it in all of their hometowns around the country. I know that people see this greatness, and yet in this bill, I don't see even I don't see any common sense. I mean, how could you pay for our highways utilizing this type of pay for? So, Mr. President, I rise to say that I don't support this piece of legislation. I think that's been made clear. I would hope that as people analyze the pay-fors, which again could not be, in my opinion, more ridiculous on things like a highway bill, I hope as people analyze this bill will go down. We will figure out a way to deal with this in a more productive way. And again, the right way to deal with this is, if you have a trust fund, is to have fees that come in and the same amount that go out. I mean, I think that in this minor conversation here, these pages probably get that, okay? I think America gets that. And I hope that, again, this bill does not pass. I hope that it does not become law. And I hope that we together will figure out another way of dealing with this in a responsible way that doesn't use gimmicks like this certainly uses. I don't know how anybody could say that, by the way, the United States Senate has assumed that in the years 24 and 25, oil will sell at $89 a barrel. Now, if the United States Senate is that good at giving financial advice, then certainly, I think, by the way, if you look at our balance sheets and you look at our deficits we've been running, people know that anything but that is the truth. But the fact is, this is a bill that should not become law. It should not be supported. I intend to vote against it. I intend to encourage others to vote against it. And again, I hope that at some point in my tenure here, we will actually begin to deal with our fiscal issues head on in a direct way that solves them for the long time and really doesn't sweep them under the rug for this generation, unfortunately, to have to clean up our mess. With that, I yield the floor. Thank you.